She's a Republican from Minnesota, and she joins us now to explain. Congresswoman, good morning to you.
Good morning, Megan.
Well, we've been all over this Acorn story here at Fox, and we know about Acorn. Our viewers know about Acorn and its problems. A history of voter registration fraud with its workers indicted, workers pleading guilty in several states to doing it, and on the list goes. And now we learn that they're helping conduct the U.S. Census, or at least their workers are going to be out there helping conduct the U.S. Census. You said enough's enough. Well, tell us exactly where you drew the line.
Well, I drew the line in terms of the information that I believe that the federal government has a right to be entitled to, that I think will be handled safely and carefully. There's three questions that I have. One is on the questions that are being asked of the American people. They're more and more personal, more and more invasive about our lives. And that's one thing, Megan, people feel like the federal government is getting too big and too involved in our lives. And when a person goes to the website and looks at the questions that are being asked, our age, our race, our ethnicity, our telephone number, for instance,
right,
and we're told that we are required to answer these questions. Now, here's the interesting information. If we fail to fill out all the questions to the government's request, they will come back and knock on our door and call us up to 6 times. If they don't get the information they want, then we're told by the Census Bureau they'll go to our neighbors on our left and on our right and ask our neighbors to give them information about our personal lives. This is very concerning. That's just on the questions. The second concern I have, Megan, is on privacy. How do we know that our information that's given to the government, personal information, will stay private? What guarantees do the American people have that hackers won't get into the system? We know that there were hackers that were able to get into the computer systems of some members of Congress. I think this is a legit question. And then finally, I'm very concerned about Acorn. Remember, it was the Obama White House that wanted to pull the census into the White House and conduct the census. Why is this important? The census is the mother lode of all data collection in the United States. And now Acorn, which in many places has served as the electioneering arm of the Democrat Party, now Acorn is being encouraged to become a national partner with the census. Many of the Acorn members, some of whom were indicted for voter fraud, will be considered potentially as enumerators to go door to door for data collection. I don't have a lot of confidence in Acorn going door to door, asking personal information, handing it over to the federal government, and will the American people be safe and secure in their information?
Right, giving your name, your race, your employment status, whether anybody in your house receives social services like food stamps, and your phone number to these Acorn workers, who we've seen in the past have pleaded guilty. It's not just that they've been alleged to have committed fraud, they pleaded guilty to fraud. Now, we don't know if it's going to be the same people, but the organization doesn't have a stellar history in terms of its hiring. All right, so you came out and said, look, I'll tell you how many people are living in my household. That's reasonable. That'll help you with the U.S. Census. But as for that other information, forget about it. Then we hear this from Shelley Lowe, a spokeswoman for the U.S. Census Bureau. She says, you are misreading the law. And she says a portion of the U.S. Code says anyone over 18 who refuses to answer any of the questions on the census can be fined up to $5,000. So they are saying that if somebody who is connected with Acorn, now working for the U.S. Census, shows up at your door, knocks on it, and demands to know your race, your employment status, the name of everybody in your household, whether you've ever received food stamps, and your phone number, and everybody else's phone number, and you say, I'm not really comfortable giving that to you, you're going to get fined $5,000.
Well, take this into consideration. If we look at American history, between 1942 and 1947, the data that was collected by the Census Bureau was handed over to the FBI and other organizations at the request of President Roosevelt, and that's how the Japanese were rounded up and put into the internment camps. I'm not saying that that's what the administration is planning to do, but I am saying that private personal information that was given to the Census Bureau in the 1940s was used against Americans to round them up in a violation of their constitutional rights.
Yeah, but we've had a lot of good years since then. I mean, that was a different time and a different era. We've had decades since then when, at least to our knowledge, this information hasn't been abused. So how do you respond to those who say, look, we've been doing it for decades since then. The law is what the law is, and you as a lawmaker should know better than to break it?
Well, I think it is important that we are not a nation of lawbreakers. I am just not comfortable with the way this census is being handled, with associating with ACORN, with the questions that are being asked, with Americans being compelled to give this information. How will this be cross-checked? Will it be held privately? And Americans, I'm not encouraging Americans not to fill out the census. I'm saying for myself and for my family, our comfort level is we will comply with the Constitution, Article 1, Section 2. We will give the number of the people in our home, and that's where we're going to draw the line.
But, Congresswoman, let me just press you on this, because the Constitution says, okay, you got to give the number of people in your home. But as you know, in this country, we don't live just by the Constitution. We have laws that people like you pass.
That's right.
And the U.S. Code, and I have it, says, and the Census Bureau's got a point, it says that anybody whoever over 18 years of age refuses or willfully neglects to answer any of the questions on the schedule submitted to him in connection with the census shall be fined not more than $5,000. Now, that's a law on the books. So why don't you try to change the law as opposed to defying the one that's already out there?
I think you have a very good suggestion. I think that's something that Congress should do. I think that we need to look in at the level of questions. I encourage people, go to the website that the federal government has set up, 2010 Census. I think people will be appalled when they see the questions that are being asked of them, what their income is, the income of every person in their family, how far their commute is to work. These are very intricate questions that are being asked of the American people, and I think it's time as a lawmaker that we come together and start looking out for the American individual and their privacy rights as well. So I think this is a discussion we have to have.
Very interesting. Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, we appreciate you coming on and giving us your insights on it.